Ever been to a wedding where the bride walks down the aisle and everyone goes silent? That moment when time stops and something sacred fills the air? Well, that happens every single Mass when the priest raises the Eucharist. Except most of us are checking our phones or thinking about lunch. I get it. I've been there too. Standing in that pew, knowing something important is happening, but my brain is running through my to-do list while Jesus is literally right there waiting for me to notice him. If you've ever felt spiritually scattered during Mass, write in the comments, "Help me focus, Jesus," because honestly, we all need that help. Here's what I've learned from studying Padre Pio's approach to the Mass. Those few seconds when the host is raised aren't just ceremony. They're like a text message from heaven, and God is waiting for you to text him back. But what do you say when the God of the universe is offering himself to you and your mind goes blank? Padre Pio had an answer. 3 words, not fancy Latin phrases or complicated prayers. Just 3 simple words that work whether you're a cradle Catholic or someone who still forgets to genuflect. Words that work when you're feeling close to God and especially when you're not. Look, I'm not going to promise these words will solve all your problems or give you mystical visions. What I will tell you is this: they'll wake up your soul during the most powerful moment of Mass. They'll give your scattered attention something to grab onto, and they might just change how you see Jesus, not just at church, but when you're stuck in traffic or dealing with difficult people. Think of it this way. If someone you loved was giving you the most precious gift they had, wouldn't you want to respond with something more than a distracted nod? That's what's happening when the priest raises the Eucharist. Jesus is giving you everything he has. These 3 words are your way of saying something back that actually matters. The crazy thing is, Padre Pio discovered these weren't just words to say during Mass. They became the language his heart naturally spoke throughout the day. When faith felt hard, when worship felt dry, when love felt impossible, ready to learn what they are. Let me be brutally honest about something. For years, I treated the elevation like a bathroom break pause. Stand up, look vaguely toward the altar, sit back down, rinse and repeat. I knew it was supposed to be important, but nobody ever taught me what to actually do with those moments. Then I started reading about how Padre Pio experienced Mass, and it wrecked me. This man would celebrate Mass for hours, not because he was showing off, but because he was having actual conversations with Jesus. The elevation wasn't downtime for him, it was prime time. According to Catholic teaching, when the priest says the words of consecration, the bread and wine become the actual body and blood of Christ. Not symbolically. Actually, the same Jesus who walked on water, who healed the sick, who died on the cross and rose again is present on that altar. The elevation is the moment when the priest shows us this incredible reality. But here's where it gets real for me. I used to think, okay, Jesus is there, now what? It felt like being introduced to someone famous at a party and having no clue what to say. You know you should say something meaningful, but your brain just freezes. Padre Pio understood that Jesus doesn't need our words, but we need to give them, not for his benefit, but for ours. Because when we don't engage during those sacred moments, we miss out on graces that are literally being poured out like water. We stand there while heaven touches earth and we're thinking about what to make for dinner. I remember talking to my friend Jake about this. He's a good Catholic guy, goes to Mass every Sunday with his family, but he told me, I feel like a fraud during the elevation. Everyone else looks so holy, and I'm just standing there wondering if I remembered to turn off the coffee pot. Jake's honesty was refreshing, because I think most of us feel that way sometimes. The problem isn't that we're bad Catholics. The problem is that nobody taught us how to be present during the most important 60 seconds of Mass. We learned when to stand and sit and kneel, but not what to do with our hearts when Jesus shows up. That's where Padre Pio's wisdom becomes life-changing. He figured out that having specific words to anchor your attention makes all the difference. Instead of your mind wandering in 15 different directions, you have somewhere to go. Instead of feeling spiritually awkward, you have something meaningful to offer. But here's what I love about Padre Pio's approach. It's not about having perfect faith or intense religious feelings. It's about showing up honestly with whatever you've got that day. Some days your faith feels strong, other days it feels fragile. Some days you're excited to be at Mass, other days you're there because you know you should be. These 3 words work regardless of how you're feeling. They also work whether you're 8 years old or 80, whether you're dealing with a crisis or just ordinary life, whether this is your first Mass or your 1000th. That's the beauty of truth. It doesn't require you to be someone different than who you are right now. The goal isn't to become some kind of mystical prayer warrior overnight. The goal is simply to be awake during the moment when Jesus is most accessible, most present, most eager to connect with you. To stop sleepwalking through the elevation and start actually meeting the God who's meeting you. So what are these 3 words that can transform those crucial seconds from spiritual autopilot into real encounter? The first word is, I believe. And before you roll your eyes thinking this is going to be some cheerleader version of faith, let me explain what I mean. When I say I believe during the elevation, I'm not pretending to have it all figured out. I'm not claiming to understand how bread becomes Jesus or why God chose such a simple way to be present with us. I'm saying, Jesus, my brain has questions, but my heart knows you're here. Faith isn't the absence of doubt, it's trusting God in the presence of doubt. When you say, I believe, while looking at the elevated host, you're making a choice that has nothing to do with how religious you feel in that moment and everything to do with who you're choosing to trust. My neighbor Lisa told me something that stuck with me. She's been struggling with her teenage daughter who's been making some really bad choices. And Lisa came to Mass one Sunday completely exhausted from fighting and worrying. When the priest raised the host, instead of feeling inspired, she felt angry. Where are you when I need you? Was her honest thought. But then she remembered to say, I believe, and she told me it came out more like, I believe you're here, even when I can't feel it. I believe you care about my daughter, even when it doesn't look like it. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains, not the faith that has all the answers, but the faith that keeps saying yes to Jesus even when life doesn't make sense. And I believe is also your way of saying, Jesus, I'm all in on this relationship. It's like when you're married and you promise to love your spouse in sickness and health, for better or worse. You're not promising to always feel romantic. You're promising to choose love regardless of circumstances. That's what I believe does during the elevation. It chooses Jesus regardless of how you feel. Here's something practical. When you say I believe, you're not just talking about the Eucharist. You're declaring faith in everything Jesus represents. His love for you personally, His power to work in your specific situation, His desire to be involved in your ordinary, messy, beautiful life. Sometimes I believe feels easy and natural. Other times it feels like lifting weights with your soul. Both are okay. Both are valuable. Padre Pio went through periods where believing felt like work, where God felt distant and faith felt forced, but he kept choosing to believe anyway. And that's when his faith grew strongest. The enemy of our souls doesn't mind if we go to Mass every week, as long as we do it on autopilot. But when we start intentionally declaring, I believe, during the most sacred moment, something shifts. We're not just attending Mass, we're participating in it. We're not just observing the mystery, we're entering into it. Your I believe also becomes a prayer for people in your life who are struggling with faith. Maybe your kids who've walked away from church. Maybe your spouse who thinks religion is outdated. Maybe your friend who's angry at God because of something tragic that happened. When you say, "I believe," during the elevation, you're offering your faith as a gift that God can use to touch their hearts. Don't worry if your "I believe" doesn't feel dramatic or earth-shaking. Faith isn't about feeling, it's about deciding. And every time you decide to trust Jesus during the elevation, you're building spiritual muscle that makes trusting Him easier in ordinary moments. Start simple. When you see the host raised, just say quietly in your heart, "Jesus, I believe you're really here." That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. Let that simple declaration reset your attention and remind your soul who's in charge. Your belief doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. It just has to be real, and when it's real, it opens the door for the second word that changes everything. The second word is, "I adore." Now, I know that word might sound a little dramatic for everyday use, but stay with me here. When I first heard about saying "I adore" during the elevation, my immediate thought was, that's nice for mystics, but I'm just trying not to fall asleep during the homily. I thought adoration was for people who had their spiritual act together, not for people like me who sometimes forget to pray for days at a time. But then I realized I had adoration all wrong. It's not about being super religious or having intense spiritual feelings. It's about recognizing what's actually happening in front of you and responding honestly to it. Think about it this way. When you see something truly amazing, what's your natural response? When you watch a breathtaking sunset or see an act of incredible kindness, something inside you wants to acknowledge how beautiful it is. You don't have to force that response. It just happens when you're really paying attention. That's what "I adore" is during the elevation. It's simply recognizing that the God of the universe has made Himself small enough to fit on a piece of bread because He loves you that much, and saying, "That's incredible." My friend Tom is a construction worker, not exactly the mystical type. He told me that when he started saying "I adore" during Mass, it felt awkward at first, but then he thought about how he feels when he sees his 5-year-old daughter sleeping peacefully, and he realized he already knew how to adore. And it's that feeling when something is so perfect, you just want to protect it and be grateful for it, he said. "I adore" is also your way of putting Jesus back in the center where He belongs. Let's be honest about something. Most of us spend most of our time thinking we're the main character in our own story. We wake up worried about our problems, focused on our goals, stressed about our failures. Adoration gently but firmly reminds us that we're not the center of the universe, and that's actually good news. When you say "I adore" during the elevation, you're essentially saying, "Jesus, you're God and I'm not, and I'm okay with that." It's like finally exhaling after holding your breath. You don't have to manage everything. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to recognize who's really in charge and trust Him with your life. But here's what's beautiful about true adoration. It doesn't make you feel small in a bad way. It makes you feel loved in a profound way. When you truly adore God, you begin to understand how precious you are to Him. You realize that the God who runs galaxies cares about your ordinary Tuesday struggles. That's not intimidating. That's amazing. Sarah works in customer service, dealing with angry people all day long. She told me that when she started saying "I adore" during Sunday Mass, it changed how she saw her job. When I remember that Jesus is Lord of everything, including the difficult customers I'll face this week, I don't take their anger so personally. I can treat them with kindness because I know who's really in control of my day. Adoration also cures our need to control everything. When you regularly tell Jesus, "I adore," while He's present in the Eucharist, you practice letting Him be God in your actual life. Your problems don't disappear, but you stop carrying them like the weight of the world depends on you figuring everything out. Sometimes "I adore" comes easily, especially when life is going well and you're feeling grateful. Other times, Especially when you're struggling or angry or confused, it feels like a choice you have to make against your natural inclination. Both are valuable. Both teach you something important about surrender. The goal isn't to feel overwhelmed with religious emotion. The goal is simply to acknowledge reality. Jesus is Lord, you're loved, and that changes everything about how you can live. What I adore during the elevation is practice for living that reality when Mass is over and real life kicks in. You know what I've discovered in my journey with Padre Pio's teachings? The more I learn about his prayer life, the more I realize how much I was missing. That's why I created something special for people like us who want to go deeper. The ebook, The Power of the Rosary with Padre Pio, Miracles, Protection and Divine Graces. This isn't just another prayer book. It's a practical guide that will help you pray the Rosary the way Padre Pio did, with real devotion that actually connects your heart to Jesus and Mary. You'll discover amazing testimonies from people who experience genuine miracles, learn Padre Pio's most powerful teachings about prayer, and get a 30-day guide with specific intentions to strengthen your faith every single day. Plus, you'll receive special prayers for protection, healing, and spiritual freedom that Padre Pio himself used. The Rosary was his spiritual weapon, and it can become yours too. Don't miss this chance to transform your prayer life with wisdom that has already helped thousands of people. To get it, just click the link in the comments. The third word is I love, and this is where things get really personal. When I first started trying to say, I love to Jesus during the elevation, it felt weird, not because I didn't mean it, but because I wasn't used to being that direct with God about my feelings. I could talk about loving God in general terms, but actually looking at the host and saying, I love you, felt vulnerable in a way I wasn't prepared for. But that's exactly why it's so powerful. Love requires vulnerability. When you tell Jesus, I love, while he's present in the Eucharist, you're not just expressing a nice religious sentiment. You're opening your heart completely to the God who opened his heart completely for you. Here's what I've learned about love. It's not primarily a feeling, though feelings can be part of it. Love is a decision to want what's best for someone else, even when it costs you something. When you say, I love during the elevation, you're deciding to want what Jesus wants, to care about what he cares about, to let his priorities become your priorities. My friend Rachel went through a really difficult divorce last year. She came to Mass angry and hurt, feeling like love was just a lie people tell themselves. When the priest raised the host, instead of saying anything spiritual, her honest thought was, I don't know how to love anymore. But then she remembered these three words, and she said, I love, came out like a cry for help. I love you, Jesus, even though I'm broken. Teach me how to love again. That's the kind of honesty that transforms everything. Not pretending to have spiritual feelings you don't have, but offering Jesus what's actually in your heart and trusting him to work with it. I love is also your way of responding to the incredible sacrifice happening before your eyes. Here's Jesus giving up his life for you, and he's asking for nothing in return except your heart. When you say, I love, during the elevation, you're saying, Jesus, you gave everything for me, and I want to give everything back to you. But let's be real about something. Sometimes love feels easy, and sometimes it feels impossible. There are days when you say, I love and mean it with every fiber of your being. There are other days when you say it through gritted teeth because you know you should, even though you're angry or hurt or confused. Both kinds of love matter to Jesus. Actually, the love that costs you something might matter more because it proves you're choosing him even when it's hard. Marcus is a dad with 3 teenagers, and he told me that saying, I love her during Mass changed how he parents. When I tell Jesus I love him while looking at the host, I remember that love isn't just warm feelings. It's staying patient when my kids are driving me crazy. It's setting boundaries because I want what's best for them, not just what makes them happy. Your I love during the elevation also becomes a commitment to love the people Jesus puts in your life. When you practice loving God during the most sacred moment of Mass, it becomes easier to love your difficult co-worker, your demanding neighbor, your challenging family members. Not because they deserve it, but because love is what Jesus does, and you want to be like him. Sometimes people ask me, what if I don't feel love when I say it? My answer is, say it anyway. Love isn't about feeling, it's about choosing. Every time you choose to say, I love, to Jesus during the elevation, you're training your heart to choose love in ordinary moments too. Here's the beautiful thing about telling Jesus you love him. He already knows, but he loves hearing it anyway. Just like earthly relationships, love grows stronger when it's expressed. Your I love during the elevation feeds the relationship and makes you more aware of his love throughout your week. Don't overthink it. Don't wait until you feel worthy enough or holy enough. Just let your heart say what it wants to say to the God who loves you beyond measure. So here's how it all comes together. I believe, I adore, I love. 3 words that take about 10 seconds to say but can change everything about how you experience Mass. Let me tell you how this actually works in real life. You're standing there during the elevation, and instead of your mind drifting to weekend plans or work stress, you have something specific to do. You look at the host and say internally, I believe you're really here, Jesus. Then I adore you for loving me this much. Then I love you with everything I have. Don't try to make it fancy or dramatic. This isn't a performance, it's a conversation. Some days the words will come easily and feel meaningful. Other days they'll feel like work. Both are fine. What matters is that you're showing up, you're present, and you're engaging with Jesus during the moment when he's most accessible. Here's a practical tip. Start with just 1 word if 3 feels like too much. Maybe this week, focus on just saying, I believe, every time you see the host elevated. Next week, add, I adore. The week after that, include, I love. Let it grow naturally instead of trying to force perfection immediately. And don't beat yourself up when you forget. I still catch my mind wandering sometimes during the elevation, thinking about completely random things. When I remember, I just jump back in with whatever word fits. God isn't grading your performance. He's just happy you're trying to connect. The really cool thing is how these words start showing up outside of Mass. When you're facing a difficult decision and you remember, I believe in God's guidance. When life feels overwhelming and you recall, I adore the God who's actually in control. When someone hurts you and you choose, I love, because that's what Jesus would do. Jennifer, a single mom I know, told me that these 3 words became her go-to prayer during tough parenting moments. When my son is having a meltdown in the grocery store and I'm embarrassed and frustrated, I remember, I believe God knows what he's doing with this kid. I adore him for trusting me to be this child's mom, and I love this little person even when he's driving me crazy. The goal isn't to become some kind of prayer superhero. The goal is simply to be more awake to God's presence, more responsive to his love, and more willing to love others the way he loves you. Try it this Sunday. When the priest raises the host, instead of checking your phone or thinking about lunch, look up and quietly say, I believe, I adore, I love. See what happens. I think you'll be surprised by how such simple words can make such a profound difference. Remember, Jesus isn't looking for perfect prayers. He's looking for honest hearts. And these 3 words, prayed honestly, can transform not just your experience of Mass, but your entire relationship with God. Look, I'm not going to tell you that these 3 words will solve all your problems or make you feel spiritual all the time. What I will tell you is this: they'll help you show up to the most important conversation you can have this side of heaven. The next time you're at Mass and the priest raises that host, I want you to remember something. The God of the entire universe is right there, offering himself to you personally, not to humanity in general, to you. With your specific struggles, your particular dreams, your unique story. He sees you, he knows you, and he's waiting for you to see him back. I believe, I adore, I love. These aren't magic words or secret formulas. They're simply the language that love wants to speak when it encounters love himself. They're your way of saying yes to the God who first said yes to you. Some of you watching this are going through really difficult times right now. You're dealing with health problems, relationship struggles, financial stress, or grief that feels unbearable. These 3 words aren't going to fix those problems immediately, but they will remind you that you're not facing them alone. The same Jesus who died and rose again is present with you, in your pain and in your hope. Others of you are in good seasons of life, but you feel spiritually dry or disconnected from God. These words can help bridge that gap between your ordinary life and the extraordinary love that's always available to you. Padre Pio understood something that changed everything for him. The Mass isn't something we watch, it's something we participate in. Jesus isn't performing for us, he's inviting us into relationship. These 3 words are your RSVP to that invitation. Don't wait until you feel ready or worthy or holy enough. Start where you are with whatever faith you have, even if it feels small. Jesus can do incredible things with ordinary people who are willing to say yes to him. If this message has encouraged you to try something new in your relationship with Jesus, write in the comments, I believe, I adore, I love. Your words of faith will encourage others who need to hear that they're not alone in wanting to grow closer to God. Friends, what we're building here is more than just a YouTube channel. We're creating a community of real people who want to grow in genuine faith, not perfect religiosity. Every like tells YouTube to share this message with more hearts that need hope. Every share reaches someone who's searching for authentic spirituality in a world full of fake promises. If these teachings have helped you connect more deeply with Jesus, would you consider becoming a channel member? Your support helps us continue creating content that actually makes a difference in people's spiritual lives. Together, we can reach millions of souls who are hungry for real relationship with God, not just religious routine. Let's keep spreading this fire of authentic faith to everyone who needs it. God bless you, and may these 3 simple words transform your heart into a place where Jesus feels at home.